Ariel Helwani in Chicago, gearing up for UFC on Fox #2 alongside UFC President Dana White. And Dana, thank you for the time, and it is good to see you again. First things first, what is your thoughts on CHAEL Sonnen bringing out the fake belt? Have you ever seen something like this before?
No, nobody's ever come out with a belt that wasn't a champion. But we're talking about CHAEL Sonnen, so.
Does that bother you? Is it a little too WWE for you?
He's, you know, actually they asked him that question here today, if he's a WWE fan growing up, and he said no, he was a boxing fan, Sugar Ray Leonard and all that stuff. You know, the guy's got a great personality. The stuff that he says is absolutely funny. It would be one thing if he couldn't fight, but you know, the guys look good. He backs up his talk. I don't ever really get involved with guys and how they act unless they cross the line and do some real crazy stuff. Or, and he's been on the border a few times, but no, whatever.
Have you ever told him you went too far? Because you were saying, you know, you have to do a separate press conference for CHAEL, and sometimes he refutes what you say. Have you ever said, just, you know, chill, cool it for a second?
I have literally never talked to him about that ever.
Really?
Anything like that, no.
Okay. I'm just wondering, do you feel as though that fight, I know you talk to the fans, you're in tune with the fans. Do you feel as though the fans are more excited for that fight? It's very rare that the co-main event, so to speak, has more buzz than the main event. And not taking anything away from Phil versus Rashad, but it seems as though the fans are clamoring to see Michael versus CHAEL fight.
Well, what I think that they're the two most hated guys in the sport. And I was looking on Twitter, and people were like, "Oh God, now I have to be a CHAEL fan because he's fighting Bisping," and I'm like, "Oh God, now I got to be a Bisping fan because he's fighting CHAEL." And I think that's what has made it really excitement for the fans. Plus, the reality is this 5-to-1 underdog thing. There's no way Bisping's a 5-to-1 underdog. Bisping has good stand-up. He wrestled Rashad Evans. He fought against Hamill, which I know a lot of people think he lost, but you know, this guy's been in there with some good wrestlers before, and his jiu-jitsu is good. It's an interesting fight.
CHAEL told us yesterday that when the card was originally announced, there were around maybe 9,000 or 10,000 tickets sold. Then when you changed the card and you announced that he was fighting Bisping, it sold out and the tickets doubled. Is that true?
I honestly don't know if that's true, but that is funny as hell.
Probably not, right?
I don't know.
Okay.
Hey, sure,
right.
It's true.
What do you make of the sort of talk back and forth between Phil and Rashad? Do you feel as though Rashad respects Phil? Do you feel as though he thinks that he's on his level?
I don't. I don't think that he does, and I think that he also, I think what I see in the whole thing with him and Rashad, I think Rashad is doing everything he can to get into his head and mess with his head, because, you know, Phil Davis is undefeated. He's 9-0. The guy's built like, it's crazy, the guy, and he's an awesome wrestler. And I think that right now what you're seeing is the experienced guy. He's been through The Ultimate Fighter. Rashad has been through so much in this company over the last however many years, and he's like, you know, the veteran playing mind games with the new guy.
What do you say to the people who say that you're moving Phil up a little too quickly up the ladder? Well,
you've heard me say, we'll see what happens Saturday, whether Phil gets a fight with, you know what I mean? So I don't think, the guy's 9-0. He's undefeated. I mean, there are guys who've got bigger fights than Rashad Evans with less fights than 9-0. So I don't think we're moving him too quickly. I think if he won Saturday and I was absolutely throwing him in against Johnny Bones Jones, then yeah, maybe I would be.
Along those lines, did you hesitate at all to put Chris Weidman in this fight because he's looked so good, because he's undefeated, because he's a young prospect? Not to ruin that momentum, he's taking a fight on 11 days' notice.
Well, he said it best today at the press conference. He said, "This isn't about 11 days' notice. This is my whole life. I've been training my whole life. I am experienced enough to be here. I am undefeated." And he was like, I'm ready for this fight. I'll go to the ground with Damian Maia. I'll stand up with Damian Maia. I'll do whatever. And he was already in shape and ready for this fight. The whole thing was about cutting the weight, and he had a great weight cut.
The first Fox broadcast was an hour long. You were a part of it. Brock Lesnar was a part of it. Kurt Menefee at the desk, and then you threw it down to Joe and Mike. Is it going to be the same kind of thing, or can we expect something different, especially this one being 2 hours long?
Right. I was on the first show because it was our first show. The desk this time will be Kurt Menefee, Randy Couture, and Johnny Bones Jones.
They'll be the analysts.
Yes.
And will there be as much talking, or will there be more action? For example, if there's a bunch of quick fights, will you show some undercard fights?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is going to be the regular format. What everybody has to understand is that Fox fight that we did was not part of our deal. This was an extra thing where David Hill said, let's throw a fight on before. Let's throw a big party. Let's kick this thing off. We're proud to be in the UFC business. Let's do it. So we put the heavyweight championship and now people are the fight was a minute long. It's a fight, We had a minute of fighting, an hour of talking last time. Hopefully this time we'll have, a lot more fighting and a lot less talking. But yes, the answer is we will fill fights in there. You're going to see the regular UFC.
Why didn't you do a primetime for this card?
Because we're doing a primetime right now on Condit Diaz.
Right. So at the end of the day, probably invest more in the pay-per-view, right? For this, in terms of the schedule now, right?
What do you mean?
Well, there's a lot of promotion for Fox and whatnot, but maybe that fight needs a little more amping up and
Fox,
get the buzz.
Fox is getting, what do they have, 52 million people watching the game the other night, and they're pumping the fight.
Right.
Why would we have to do, what I mean?
That's my point.
Oh,
okay.
Well, that was a stupid question.
Well, I just wanted to hear it from you.
Oh, still a stupid question.
All right, well,
but go ahead.
And just curious, 8.8 million it peaked at. Is that sort of the benchmark here, or do you?
I have no idea. I figure if we do 8.8 million people with a minute of fighting, we're going to do really good with, a couple hours of it.
Right. I just want to get your thoughts on a couple more things before we let you go. You obviously mentioned football. You were very happy that the Patriots won on Sunday. Some
Remember
people.
All the talking you had at the beginning when
I don't.
Oh, okay.
What happened?
Buffalo won the first game, and you thought you were.
I'm a Giants fan. New York. You crazy?
Traitor.
Crazy?
Oh, so you got two teams, so you can flip flop.
No, I don't. I've never liked the Bills.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay. You are
working too much. Anyhow, back to the fights. A lot of people were upset on Twitter. You were saying, "I'm watching football. My website is hacked." People said my credit card info is on the site. You don't care. What's going on? What do you say to those people?
Yeah, people said my website. It's what it was is you had all these people that are part of this whole internet thing that's going on. That were doing that. You're not going to play games with me. I'm not going to play games with you people. These guys went in and hacked our website. They moved our URL. That's what they did. First of all, the system that we have set up at UFC is very good. For people, but there's guys out there. These internet guys are geniuses. These guys are hacking government websites. This stuff's going to happen. And no, nobody's stuff was compromised. But again, I just had this conversation earlier. You have a lot of people, including yourself, and yes, I will call you out, and all the other journalists that are terrified of the media, of the internet. They're terrified of the internet.
What makes you say that?
It's a fact. I've dealt with it for the last 10 years with you guys. Guys are terrified of the internet, but don't feel bad.
Based on what? I'm just curious.
There's senators and lots of other people that are terrified of the internet.
What would we be scared of? We work on the internet. What would we be scared of?
You're scared of the
people?
Of the people. You're absolutely afraid.
Based on what?
Of the people. Don't play games. You know you are. You are, and all the other guys that were standing here today are terrified of the internet. I'm not. I'm not afraid of the internet. It's a place where cowards live. Okay? And the way that this whole thing has gone down, them hacking our site was the best thing they could have ever done for us. Because what that does is now you look like terrorists. And now a lot of people that were afraid of you now hate you. There's a way. Is this bill perfect? No bill is perfect.
You mean the SOPA and PIPA?
So no bill is perfect. I think this thing started off with the right idea. Stealing is stealing. If you walk into a store and you steal a watch, or if you steal a pay-per-view, it's still stealing. But there's this whole generation that grew up when everything is free on the internet, and they don't want to see that change. And I understand that. I get it. But it's not right. There's something that needs to be worked out that works for everybody, whether it's the UFC, stealing pay-per-views, stealing people's songs, the artists, whether it's movies or whatever it might be. There's an answer to fix this. Is this bill perfect? And I see people like that on Twitter and stuff, people who get it and say the same thing, and I agree with them. And I've never talked about this before. But, you brought up the whole hacking thing. All these hackers and all these guys that want to act cool and think funny, you guys just flipped the switch. And believe me, I have a lot more information on what's going on than you do. And, this bill that looked like was going to be dead, you might have brought it back to life with the way that
they may have revived it.
They might have revived it.
Wow.
Yeah, when you start acting like a terrorist, first of all, one thing is everybody gets the internet and everybody loves it and everybody has this thing and all these powerful people coming out and the internet saying, don't do this, don't do this. People were scared of that. But the minute you start acting like a terrorist, now you piss people off. Now you've made yourself look really, really bad. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this shakes out over the next year. But the bottom line is, and what I'm saying is, I'm not afraid of you. You don't scare me. You come in and you do it again. I don't care. You don't scare me, internet. You know, you don't. They always have this thing that you can't stop the internet, you can't stop the government. Okay? Anybody who fights the government loses. I don't care who you are or what you do or who you think you are, even the internet.
Two very quick things. You announced Jim Miller versus Nate Diaz, Fox 3. Do you know what the main event is yet?
No.
And in our interview on Fuel on Friday, you dropped something that sort of went over people's heads. You said that Atlanta may not be 100% on April 21st.
Right.
What's going on there?
Still working. It's probably going to be 100% now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Looking good.
Well, the UFC returns to Fox this Saturday night. You've got CHAEL Sonnen versus Michael Bisping, Phil Davis versus Rashad Evans, and Chris Weidman versus Damian Maia. It all kicks off at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then you've got the prelims on Fuel, I believe, at 5 p.m. Eastern, right?
Yep.
All right. There he is, Dana White. Thank you so much for the time, Dana, and we will see you on Saturday night.
Appreciate it.